Hello. All right, thank you very much for watching this video. I hope that it's a useful resource to you and that you get what you need from it. So before we start, I thought I would just bring up the fact that the things I'm going to be talking about, they're not mainstream at all. So what I do is I challenge the medical paradigms and the social assumptions that we tend to receive and that we therefore kind of have as an internalized thing in our own hearts, even without meaning to. And I challenge those. And my goals in doing that is to teach you or to guide you towards having a more peaceful, connected, loving and joyous family with your children. I'm Ali Grace. I don't know if you've heard of me before. It doesn't really matter if you have or haven't. You might have seen my writing in The Real Experts by Michelle Sutton. It's a fabulous book. I think you would all do well to have a look at it. I write online quite a lot. I have a blog that's called Suburban Autistics, and I have a Facebook page called Suburban Mama. That's Mama with 2 M's, just because 1 M was already taken. I've written things in the Natural Parent magazine, and I've just done a few things around the place. I have 5 children. All of my children are autistic and otherwise neurodivergent. I'll probably most likely focus on them being autistic for this specific resource. But I do believe that the things I talk about and the work I do is applicable to a lot of different kinds of children, not necessarily just autistic children. My first baby I was only 20 when I found out that I was pregnant, and I had a really hard pregnancy and was extremely sick. And I remember when my daughter was born, I just was looking at her and she just seemed so wonderful and so perfect, and motherhood just felt so right to me. I wanted to give her the love that all children thrive with. And that began me off on my journey of thinking about a different way to raise children than what is typically recommended, that what most of the baby books and the parenting books tell you. So that is the beginning of my journey. Over the next few years, I had 3 more children. So then I became a mother of 4. All 4 of my children were autistic. And I started to learn more about myself, and I started to think about myself being autistic and realizing how much it influenced me in my life. And I started to think to myself, it's not right that people are telling me and that there's something wrong with me, or that there's something wrong with my children. This is not logical, doesn't feel good to me. How does it help someone to think, oh my gosh, there's something wrong with me? The way that I was born is inherently flawed. I don't see how it will help that person to have a supported, good life. And yeah, I'm sure they could still have happiness and learn things, but they could have done that with the belief that they're inherently okay. And I started to think about when I was a child, how people didn't know that I was autistic. And I still experienced a lot of discrimination based on the way that I was. But the thing is, nobody ever said to me, listen, Ali, you have autism. You're good at some things and not good at other things. You're special. And I never experienced that othering, that stigma that I see now, that there are rising rates of diagnosis. I don't believe there are rising rates of autistic people. There are rising rates of identified autistic people. You know, I was autistic when I was a child. I wasn't a statistic as an autistic child. There are plenty of other people like me. So I see now the things that happen once we know somebody's autistic. And I want to separate that out from the possibility that maybe we're just going about it all wrong. what I'd like to do now is bring up a few of the main things we do here about autism and autistic children. And we tend to hear these things right after we learn that our kids are autistic. And that's because a lot of people have opinions about this, and everybody wants to tell you. You know, the people that maybe are the ones that helped you identify that your child was autistic, they very often hold themselves up in quite high importance. And I believe that they overestimate and overstate their own importance in your child's life. I want to emphasize that your community, your family, you as a parent, your child's siblings, pets, you know, all the people around them that nurture them and that give them fun experiences and that make them feel loved and happy and supported, those things and those people are the most important part of your child's life, okay? Not these doctors, experts, whoever else decides that your child is broken and they're going to help you to fix that, your child, okay? Because they really don't understand who your child is, and they're not equipped to have that relationship with your child that you are. All right, no matter how well-meaning these people are, the fact is they're not autistic. Most of them didn't ask autistic people for their opinions. They don't understand the discrimination that autistic people face, and that is actually the main barrier to our happiness. We all have reasons for the things we do. Our behaviours and the things other people see never exist in a vacuum. They exist as a part of a wide array of complex things. And when somebody decides that your child being autistic is a problem, essentially what they're doing is they're taking a few things that they see that they don't like, and there's not necessarily a logical reason they don't like it either. You know, it's often based on discrimination. It's simply, that is unusual, therefore I don't like it, therefore we should fix it. You know, what I'm doing here is I'm applying a general explanation to what I see as the norm in terms of how things are socially at the moment for autistic children and their supporting families. And I'm helping you to see the patterns there so that you can recognise them and challenge them. And then the final goal is, you know, to have a happier family, to have a more peaceful and relaxed family, and for you as a parent to feel better about things, leaving you in a much better position to support your child. If we take those assumptions that people tend to have and that people try to put upon us and upon our children, and we look at them in a kind of objective, logical, scientific way, one of the more important things that we can see is that the assumptions often actually contradict what we know about child development, about what children need from their parents, from their families and their communities. So not only is it, I don't think it's even arguable that these things are harmful to children. Some people just think that the harm is worth the outcome. So not only is it harmful, it doesn't actually meet children's needs. Essentially what we need as humans, and that includes children because children are people, is that we need a family who loves us, whatever that family looks like. We need people who are going to support us and be there for us and love us. We need access to play and to things that make us happy. And that's going to be different for everybody. We all need to go and figure out the stuff we love to do. And for most children, our families will help us to do more of those things. We need to feel like we have a place of belonging, like that we belong in our family, that we belong in our community. We need to feel like we have control over our own lives and that we can make decisions that influence us. We need to decide, you know, I'm going to wear my red shirt today, and we need to have somebody not telling us, no, you can't wear your red shirt today because I prefer blue. We need to be able to access opportunities for learning more about our communities, and we need to be able to access our communities and feel like we understand the community that we live in and that we can understand, therefore, our place within it. We all deserve those things. we don't deserve them any less because of being autistic. And, you know, a lot of autistic adults get at that we aren't really viewed as fully human. This is how many people view our children. And that therefore, all these things we're doing to them are justified, because it doesn't matter what their human needs are. What matters are the behaviours that we can see on the outside that we don't understand and we don't like. So, yeah, I think that's a very important thing to remember. And if all you remember from this presentation is that our children have needs and people will try and remove those opportunities to meet them, and that we should push back against that because that's not useful to our child's development and optimal development, I would love it if you just remember that one thing because I think it's very integral to everything else that I'm discussing. If we are, as parents, going to be effective parents in terms of we are going to support our children to thrive to the best of our ability and knowledge, and to prevent harm to them that will interfere with their optimal development. I believe those things are a part of parenting. If we're going to do that, we need to understand precisely how the popular, mainstream, and presently normal recommendations about autism are taking away from our children's rights and are interfering with their optimal development. So this is actually quite a difficult skill, mostly just because we all have internalized beliefs about disability. And many people, when they find out that their child's autistic, without them even realizing it, all these beliefs about disability and about, you know, special places for special people, things like that, everything, the exclusion, the stigma, how if you don't act normal, you should learn how to. There's just a lot of things that will happen in your brain, and these won't be conscious. These consist of a lifetime of hearing discriminatory behaviours, attitudes, opinions, social policy, education, all sorts of things. It all contributes to our beliefs about a topic. So after a lifetime of hearing about how tragic disability is and how it would be better if nobody was disabled, and after hearing things about eugenics and various other things, there's so many places. What happens when you learn your child's autistic is you might some of those things will come to the surface. So I think it is very important to be able to recognise how these beliefs don't actually serve us or our children. I guess that's the main thing. They don't serve our children. So how do these things take away from our children's childhoods? All right, well, I'm going to start by explaining that all children benefit from the things I described earlier. We all need those things, all of us. So let's just take the example of your child being identified as autistic at quite a young age, and the recommendation is that they go into some kind of therapy centre and they go there without you, or the goal is to eventually go without you, and they're transitioning you away, and they want your child to be in there with a therapist in a room for many hours a week. And depending on what it is, your child could be in there for as long as an adult works a full-time job. So how is that meeting any of your child's needs? And I think the answer is quite clear when we think about it like this. The answer is that it's not meeting your child's needs. Okay, if they're stuck in a building, first of all, they're segregated from their community. Okay, they're not getting to go down with their mum or dad to the supermarket. They don't get to go join a play group to get to know other kids from their suburb. They aren't walking the dog with you, seeing birds outside. They're not doing all the things that if you hadn't placed them into a therapy centre for hours, that they would have got to do just naturally whilst living life. So that's just one example. Another thing is, like I said earlier, we actually need to be inherently distrustful of professionals involved with autism. We should always make them prove themselves worthy to us and our children. They need to prove to me that they are respectful of my child, and not just that they are respectful and that they're not going to hit them or yell at them or demean them, but that they actually respect that my child's a full human being, that they're okay as they are, that their family is the most important place for them. Okay, and I don't think that's a pessimistic view to take. I think that's the one that makes the most sense. It's the norm to be inherently ableist and disrespectful to disabled and autistic children. If you are different to that, that's an anomaly. That's unusual. So that's just one example of sitting in a therapy centre. So yeah, if they're in there, they're missing out on all those experiences. Another thing they're being deprived of is their freedom to play and learn about what they want to do with their free time. You know, it's not like daycare, because daycare is supposed to be built around the needs of children. So if you're getting your child up to go to daycare, they're still experiencing some freedom within that setting. And because people are trained in child development who work in a daycare. So you'd like to think that people are trying to meet your child's needs and they're trying to provide them with a community. Whereas I don't believe a therapy centre has that as its goal. No one is trying to provide your child with community in this situation. They're not trying to provide some kind of loving, freedom-filled environment for your child to play and learn within. What they're trying to do essentially is rectify what they believe are problems with your child. So I think that's pretty problematic. Another thing is the content of this kind of stuff, and I don't really want to get deeply into that because I feel like that's something that people can actually quite easily assess for themselves. I think we also need to think about how it erodes your child's sense of self and belonging when they are told implicitly and indirectly that there is something wrong with them and that that's why they have to come to this place to do things that they don't want to do, when all of their other neighbourhood children are playing out the front of their homes, digging in the sand, getting the letters out of the postbox, walking the dog, looking at aeroplanes in the sky. You have to go to this place because there's something wrong with you and you need to be fixed, even if you don't like it. So I believe that on its own, regardless of the content of what happens there, is very harmful, because we do need to feel that we belong. We need to feel we belong somewhere, that we fit in. We don't want to always feel like we're so different that we have to go somewhere else and that we don't get to do the fun stuff that everyone else gets to do. And I think it's kind of impossible to assess what the effect of that is, but I would say it's quite large. I believe it's a large impact. And that will feed into our children's sense of community, because it's very hard to feel like you have a community when you have been taken away from it on purpose, and when you've been told that there's something wrong with you that isn't the case for everyone else in your community. That will impact upon our ability to feel that we fit there. So if you ask the question, is this actually helping my child's optimal development? What is the opportunity cost of this? What would my child be doing instead, if not this? Does my child like this? Does my child feel free when they do this? Does my child feel respected? Is this going to help with their sense of belonging? Is this going to help our family to be closer together, or is it going to drive us apart? Is this going to help me and my child feel more peaceful? Is this making us happy? Would I be doing this if somebody hadn't told me your child's autistic and there's something wrong with them? Would I accept this sort of thing for a child who's not autistic? Would I have wanted to do this myself when I was a child? What did I do as a child that was valuable? And is this going to take away those opportunities from my own child? And so there's quite a lot of questions we can ask. As soon as you start to question things, you can start to find your own answers, and you can start to realise these expectations and these recommendations, they're far from perfect. They're so flawed, and they're always changing. We need to move towards more respected futures for autistic children, and that starts with asking these questions. The next thing I'm going to talk about is my own children. I thought it would just be nice to share sort of what our life looks like when you have questioned these things, and when you have thought about respect, connection, community, friendship, love, and all the other things that I obviously believe children should have a right to get. So my eldest child, my daughter, she's high school age next year, and she's so excited about going to high school. For people that have read the things I've written or seen my wider work, you might know that my children have actually never been to school. I chose to not send my children to school because I wanted them to have the choice to go to school or not go to school. I didn't want to coerce them somewhere against their wishes. So yeah, they've always been allowed to stay home. Anyway, she really wants to go to school next year. So she is going to try out a community high school that we found near our home, and it looks pretty cool. It's small. The teachers work quite closely with the kids, and my daughter knows a lot about discrimination against autistic people because I'm her mum, and she isn't going to tell people she's autistic. She's just going to go to that school and she's going to talk to them about her needs and, you know, what she needs and what she's feeling, or whatever comes up. I don't know. We'll see what happens when it comes. And she's not worried at all. She's just so excited to go out and make some friends. So prior to this time, she has spent a lot of her childhood being really creative. And it's something I've always admired about her. So I support that by buying things like clay, and we have jewelry making things in our home, and she has a sewing machine and she sews. She cooks a lot. She has her own space at home where she is just hers for cooking. It's kind of like her own kitchen. I mean, it doesn't have its own oven or anything like that. I would have loved to do that for her, but it's just a section of our kitchen that's for her, and she has her own tools and utensils and ingredients, and she puts recipes together and we make recipe books with them. She sometimes sells her things that she made to people, and she's never been put into any kind of therapy didn't even cross my mind really. I always knew that she was really amazing and awesome, and I didn't want to mess with that. I don't believe that anybody has ever really seen her as broken or damaged, and I'm so thankful for that, because it's really lovely to see how much she trusts people, how enjoyable spending time in her community is, how excited she gets about doing things like planning to go to school, for example. She's so excited about it. And I've always supported her in, say, social relationships. And I don't want to go into too many details because it feels like that's private information for her to know. But I have always supported when she needed. And I think respectful support is the answer to how to help our autistic children. Advocate for our children, support them, see where they're at and be there for them, and do more of the things that make them happy. Now, my son, who's younger than my daughter, he's my second child, he is like right now just super into reading. He's reading everything. I found all these horrible histories magazines in the op shop, and he has read so many of them. It's just such a mess around his bed because he just drops a magazine on the floor when he's finished one. He's very inquisitive and always asking questions about everything. It can get quite tiring. Sometimes I need to say, please don't ask me any more questions today because I cannot process them anymore, and I do not want to explain the complexities of the world at 10:30 p.m. He's really fairly outgoing. He loves to explore the community. He likes to go out for walks, and he collects bottle tops at the moment. He has so many in his collection, jars full. This son he's very active. So I think he's probably the most noticeably different, maybe out of all of my kids, because he's always on the move. Now, when he got to school age, I didn't put him into school. One of the main reasons for that was he couldn't sit in a chair and he couldn't hold a pencil. And I thought, they're going to make a huge big deal out of that. They're going to try and make him sit in a chair. And of course, that skill has come in time. He's learning how to write really well now, so he's learning how to hold his pencil more appropriately. There's so many things that he does that it's just so joy-filled. And I'm really glad that he's managed to have that happy childhood, because certainly if he'd been born in a different family, things might have gone a bit differently for him. Yeah, my other two sons, so my third child, he's probably caring is maybe a word that I would use to describe him. He's one of the most caring people I've ever met. He has so much compassion for people. He helps a lot look after his younger siblings, and he always did that. And he's very nurturing of our pet dog, the stuff he's interested in. He really likes sharks, and we've bought some megalodon teeth, and we're just waiting for them to arrive to our house in a package. He recently got a microscope for his birthday. He loves sciencey things, and he started to read Enid Blyton books at the moment, which was cool for me because I loved Enid Blyton books. I liked the Fantastic Five. He's reading The Secret Seven. He prefers The Secret Seven. My youngest son is also quite active and physical, so it seems like he spends a lot of his time climbing. He wants to do soccer, he does gym, he does parkour, he does all sorts of stuff like that. He is reading a lot too. Doesn't seem like it's his favourite thing in the world or anything. I think climbing in the trees in the backyard is probably his favourite thing. He likes to save up his money and then go down to the shop near our house and put, I think it's $1, a $1 coin into the gumball machine, and then a gumball just like rolls around and comes down the bottom, and he gets excited seeing what colour he got, and then he brings it home and shows us all his gumball. He's into fashion, and he has his own sewing desk at home with his sewing machine, and an amazing friend of ours comes around once a week and helps him to make things and sew things. He's made some heat bags, a scarf. I think he made a little pillow and blanket cover for one of his soft toys. And he wants to make clothes. He watches Project Runway and loves fashion. And he has his own Louis Vuitton bag. He's very proud of it. So, yeah, I've also got a younger autistic daughter. She's 3. She's about to turn 4. But, I mean, she's a 3-year-old, so how that looks is that she just plays a lot. She digs in her little mud kitchen. She loves to help with shopping. She likes to read Spot and Maisie books. She loves to dress up. Some friends of ours often give us beautiful old dancing school costumes that fit her, and she loves to put them on. All her drawers are organised with labels of what's in each drawer, and because she likes to go choose her own clothes, and she actually changes her clothes 2 or 3 times a day. She's actually really good at dressing herself because she tried so hard to be a bit like the older kids. I always said that she didn't know she was a baby. She came out thinking she was just like them. So yeah, that's a little bit about my family. The reason I decided to share that was because I guess I just wanted to explain life goes on when you decide not to do these harmful things to children. Life just continues, the same as it would if you never knew your child was autistic. The same it would if everybody thought being autistic was amazing, like everyone thinks being gifted is. You know, what if someone had said to you, instead of your child's autistic, they said your child's gifted? You would have felt so different, probably, just because of our own internalised ableism that we all have. So life goes on. You find ways to support your children that don't involve a professional telling you your child's broken, and that don't involve you giving them the message that they're damaged. I'm just so happy that my children have had these beautiful, respected childhoods where they've got to do things that they love, where they get to play, where they get to be loved within their communities. And in addition to that, I'm glad that I, as a parent, have seen my children grow up, and I've been so proud and joyous of every step. So what I'm doing next is I'm going to go through some FAQs, frequently asked questions, that I get when I discuss these ideas with people. Probably the main one that I get is, but how do I support my child then if I don't listen to the professionals? And that is both an easy and a difficult thing to explain. It's easy because we can support our children just the way we would support them if they weren't autistic. All children grow and change, and that includes autistic children. It really is as simple as you support them as you parent, as you all grow together. But the reason that that's hard is because it's actually hard for everybody. Everybody has challenges being a parent, whether their children are autistic or not. All of us are raising these tiny people, and when they're little, they need us so much. They wake us up in the night. We need to carry them everywhere. They cry when they're upset, and that's loud. When they become toddlers, they start to want things that they can't have, and yet they don't yet understand that they can't have those things because they're only toddlers. They go through huge brain leaps and something's going on and we don't know what, and then suddenly they come out of it and we're like, oh, okay, well, I'm glad that's over because that was challenging for everyone. We all need to make sure our own needs are met alongside our children's needs, and that is inherently complicated and difficult in the society that we presently live in. What I've noticed most about parents that have autistic children is they want some answers. And the thing is, nobody has those answers, okay? We all are just doing the best that we can, raising our children and addressing problems, issues, conflict, etc., as they arise. And yes, we can develop strategies, strategies for ourselves, being more respectful, how we might want to manage things maybe without punishment, how we live without school, how we utilise our communities or our friendship or family networks to support us, how we figure out what our children's needs are, underlying behaviours that we see, how we discuss things with our children, how we bring up and solve problems with them. And these are all things that will be different for each family. So when people say to me, but how can I help my child then if I don't listen to the experts? It really is as simple as, imagine that you never knew they were autistic, for one thing, because we all support our children as they grow. Now, on the other hand, I do think that our children need support that's specific to their being autistic, because discrimination against disabled and autistic people is massive. And so that is actually going to be the biggest barrier to your child thriving, is going to be discrimination. So I think it is extremely important for parents to read and listen to autistic adults, because this is a minority group, essentially. We experience social oppression because we behave in ways that other people inherently distrust and don't like. And that results in problems for us. So we need to learn to understand discrimination and how that's impacting upon our child, so that we can scaffold a little bit, understand the discrimination and how it's acting upon them, and so that we can help them learn about the discrimination that they're facing. And then they can make their own choices as they grow about how they want to address that. So, yeah, learning about discrimination is definitely not what is recommended by professionals at present time. But to me, that is the key. And with the practical supports of day-to-day living, we can be there supporting our children, and we can bring in other people and other resources that will assist our children as well. The second question a lot of people ask me is, how do I know this is right? So sometimes when people come across people like me who are encouraging you to drop the preconceptions and live a more authentic, loving and trusting life with your children, they say, but the professionals said they had all the answers. You're not giving me the answers. And yeah, I think that is inherently a part of this life. You don't have all the answers, but nobody has all the answers. You don't have all the answers when you have a non-autistic or non-disabled child either. Nobody does. So I think we need to stop othering our children so much that we believe they're kind of like, I don't know, robots or something, that we have some kind of special way that we have to raise them that is really regimented. And we do this when they do that, and therefore it'll cause them to act like whatever. Like I said at the very start of this, behaviours are what we see, but underneath that is a complex array of factors. And that is what we need to be looking at. So the third question I'll address is, how do I learn more about ableism and discrimination? So I did kind of bring this up in the other question by disabled adults. So fortunately for us, we do live in a time when the internet is extremely accessible. I'm not saying it's accessible to everyone, but I think it's becoming more and more accessible all the time. So I'd like to think people have access to the internet. And I mean, you can see things like this. You can hear from people like me now. And it's true that the professionals get annoyed. They say, oh, these people should just be quiet. They're ruining children's lives, you know. But the good thing is, theirs isn't the only voice in the room anymore. They're not taking up all the seats at the table. There are many opportunities now for us to listen to disabled people directly. And I believe this is the only thing that makes sense. If we wouldn't be discussing any other minority group or group of people without directly consulting those who it actually involves, we would think this was a failing and probably a travesty, because it's not proper information. It's no longer a useful resource when we haven't consulted the very people who it affects and that have direct life experience with this. So I think seeking out the work of disabled people is the number one way for you to learn about ableism. Ableism is essentially discrimination against disabled people. And we really need to listen, because that is how we are going to understand the impacts that a discriminatory society has upon our children. And those impacts are continuing to impact upon me as a disabled adult and upon my disabled friends. And it's something that we have had to learn to navigate. So that is an essential life tool, is knowing how to navigate ableism and discrimination. So please do go directly to the source, disabled people themselves. And we're not a monolithic group. We're not all going to have the same opinions, but you will notice patterns. And there are disabled people who you can pay to receive their expert advice or their opinions on things. So whenever you can, pay disabled people, get this knowledge. And it is extremely valuable to you and your child to learn about discrimination. What I'd like to do in conclusion is just really invite you and encourage you to think about how important love is to our children and respect. And I want to reassure you that you as a parent are already equipped with what your child needs to have a respected and thriving future. You are the person who is responsible for asking those questions. Is this actually going to help my child to thrive? Is this going to nurture my child or not? And unfortunately, people will present this information as though it's going to be supporting your child. Very, very often, if not most of the time, they will be wrong. So I guess that sounds a little depressing, but I haven't experienced that it's that depressing from my own perspective within my own family. Of course, it is depressing in a wider sense because this bad things are happening to autistic children and I don't want that to happen. But as a family, it is so amazing and lovely to see what happens when you just ditch the advice, the bad advice, the advice that already assumes children are less worthy just on account of being children. And then when you combine that with ableism and discrimination based upon that they're disabled, it's just this horrible mess of disrespect. But when you get rid of that, there is just this amazing open future in front of you, and you don't know what it looks like. It's not going to be happy all the time. Nobody's future is, and nobody knows what their future looks like. Okay, but there is so many opportunities for connection all the time. You don't have to say, you don't have to believe, because this is what people will tell you, and things will tell you this. You don't have to believe that now you've got an autistic child, your life is so different, everything's going to change. It's not. Okay, your child is your beautiful child. That's who they still are. Okay, they're this amazing person, full of opportunity and potential. You might get to see some of it if you're lucky, because it is their life, not yours. And you get to do all the beautiful things that you dreamed about, because I think all of us think about what we're going to do with our children. I imagine holding my babies and, taking them to fun places like to the beach. I love to swim. So I imagine taking them to the beach. I imagined roller skating with them because I love roller skating. I imagined taking them out running with me like my dad used to do with me. And I do all those things. We can do all those things together. And maybe some of it looks different to what others might expect, but I don't understand why that's such a problem. So you can do all those beautiful, amazing things with your children. You can love them, they'll love you back. You can take them fun places that they love. You don't have to take them places they hate. There's no need to do that. You can, plan their birthday party and invite the people that they care about and they care about them back. When it is their birthday, they could look through, like what I did when I was a kid. I looked through the Women's Weekly book of kids' cakes and I chose which cake I wanted. And my sister used to always choose the Dolly Varden one every single year. And you can do those amazing, cool things with your kids. And your life as a parent and their life as a child is going to be full of incredible bonding and love and adventure and exploration. And it's also going to be full of hardship, or hard times. Maybe hardship seems a bit strong, because everybody's lives is full of hard things. It's, good things peppered with difficult things, and that is the way life is. So you do not need to get rid of your dreams. I have no idea why everyone seems to think that's going to happen when you have an autistic child. Actually, I do have an idea, but it seems ridiculous. I don't know why it is so pervasive and continuing. You have so many opportunities ahead of you, and you have a really opportunistic future. So I guess the main message I want you to take from this is you are going to have fun with your kid. And they're autistic. That's cool. Thank you for listening. Bye.